Good evening, everyone, and welcome to BT's Fly Tying Friday. Tonight, we have the pleasure of a presentation from Fred DuPre. He'll be talking about topwater bass flies. And next to carp fishing, bass are one of my favorite flies, so I'm really looking forward to his presentation. We'll finish up tonight with a weekly tip, and we're going to talk a little bit more about flex clips. And here's our star tonight. Fred DuPre, like me, is a retired telephone company employee who has been tying flies for the past 62 years. He has been recognized for his skill at the Fly Tying Vice with the Busick Award, Dick Nelson Fly Tying Teaching Award, and has earned the Bronze, Silver, and Gold Fly Tying Skills Awards. Fred is one of the few people who is an evaluator for all three skills levels. He's a longtime tying teacher and demonstrator with a string of expos, shows, and conclaves to his credit. He is currently the treasurer for the FFI Fly Tying Group and is on their executive board. Join us in welcoming Fred. Hey, buddy, the vice is all yours.
Tonight, we're going to talk about bass flies. And let me talk a little bit about where I live, Georgetown, Texas. It's right on the edge of the hill country. West of us is officially the hill country. And there's a lot of rivers that flow through the hill country that are mostly spring-fed rivers. These rivers are super clear. Matter of fact, a lot of them you can see down 8 to 10 feet and see the bottom. They are clear, and they're relatively shallow as well. Matter of fact, if you look at one of my favorite rivers, the Llano River, it looks like a trout river. It is a lot of runs and riffles, and it's braided, and it's a great river. And seldom does it get any deeper than your armpits. So you're generally catching fish around knee deep or waist deep water in the fast riffles. The fish of choice here is called a Guadalupe bass. It's indigenous to Texas in the hill country, but we also have smallmouth bass and we also have largemouth bass in the rivers around here. Tonight, the first fly we're going to tie tonight is the Llano bug by Kevin Hutchinson. It's mostly foam, and it floats not on top of the water, but in the water column, right on top. Let me show you the recipe for this fly. The hook is a TMC 200R number 6 hook. That's a curved nymph hook. Thread is 140 denier yellow. The body is a 2 millimeter foam, yellow foam. By the way, you can tie this in yellow or any color you want. Matter of fact, black is a good color. And also the body is part yellow possum dubbing. Legs are barred silly legs. Wing is a deer hair from a deer hair body, and the head is yellow possum dubbing. Okay, secure the hook in the vise, and I'm going to lay down a thread base, touching turns until the thread hangs right there, the hook barb. Remove the waist. Next, you're going to need a piece of 2 millimeter foam, yellow foam here. And I generally tie, the width of this foam is generally almost the width of the hook gape, okay? And then I take and I cut a point to tie in, and I tie it in about halfway up that point. And next, we're going to dub the body. And this is the part that just takes probably the longest part of this fly. And you can loose dub this. You really want to use some type of fur that does not trap a lot of water. Okay, we've tied in, we dubbed the body. Next step is we're going to pull it over and tie down the top. About 3 wraps. Next, we're going to advance the thread to right behind the hook point, the eye. And we're going to tie in over the top, smash down the foam. Next, we're going to tie in legs. And these are just round rubber legs. And I'll leave them attached. These are actually 2 legs. These are 2 legs, and this is 2 legs. First 2 legs, I'm going to tie on the opposite side. I'm going to tie it in nice and loose for now until I tie down both sides. There we go. And we position the legs. I'll come back up here and tie these down a little bit more. I'm going to take a little dubbing and fill in that gap. And fill it in. And then advance the thread back to this point right here. Next, I'm going to put in a wing, and just using regular deer hair. Okay, so I'm going to measure the wing, and it's slightly past the bend of the hook, and then tie it in. Then I'm going to fold over the foam, create a head. Make about 5 wraps. Come in and cut the foam, not real short, but leaves a little collar on it. Then pull my thread up toward the eye, and I'll take my whip finisher and tie it off. At this point, I'm going to measure the legs, and the rear legs are going to be longer than the front legs. About like that. And then I take a bodkin and pull apart the legs. And that is the llano bug. We fish this fly all by itself, or we hang another fly, a dropper. And in a lot of cases, I hang a small damsel nymph from this fly, about 12 inches down. And half the time the bass take the damsel, and half the time they take the llano bug. So, okay, this next fly is called a lantelope. The first one was a llano bug, and this one's called a lantelope. So, it's some hint that we fish the Llano River a lot. Friends of mine, Jeff Holter and Jim Gray, Both live in the Austin, Georgetown area. About 10 years ago, maybe 15, designed this fly. This fly is a very durable hopping bug, and it too, we typically hang a dropper fly, like a damsel nymph, from this fly. You can tie this, I'm gonna tie it in size 8. And we're gonna lay a thread base down on the hook shank, front to rear, all the way to the hook bend. Nice touching turns. Okay, first thing we're gonna put on is an elk tail. We want to measure the tail to be slightly shorter than the shank of the hook. And then I'm going to take my scissors and cut this much off. And then I'm going to tie in the tail. Hold on to it. At 1, 2, 3. Don't let go of this tail. Crank down on it, and then come in here and push this back. So there's your tail. And take 1, 2, 3, and spin. And then push back, and then advance your thread. Now, you want to pack this a little bit. So what you do is you go in and reach back and grab your tail and take a packer. This is a packer I got when I lived on a White River. It's made by Dead Fly. It's not only a packer, but it also is a half hitch tool. So I'll put a half hitch in to hold the thread, and then I'm going to advance the thread about 2 turns up the hook shank. And I'm holding in my fingers, these 3 fingers right here, I'm holding that hair. Now I'm going to lay this hair sort of at an angle across the top of the shank. I'm going to take 1, 2, 3, tighten down, let it spin, and then come in here and pack it tight, and then do a half hitch in front. It won't come loose. Now the next thing we are going to do is check to make sure I have enough room for the head. And this is the head. It's a round foam cylinder. And if you notice, I have put my bodkin through that cylinder slightly off center. And this, if you can see, this head is angled at about 20 degrees. And I have the hole going through the bodkin down the bottom part of that. So most of the head will stick out above the hook shank. And I put it on the bodkin because it allows, you notice I got a couple of them on here. It creates a hole so I can then later on thread this onto the hook shank. Let me put it back. So I'm coming in here and I'm saying, well, do I have enough space. Yep. I probably can get a little bit more on there. Let me see if I can pack a little bit more. And I like to use the Zap-A-Gap. It's in the bottle with a brush. It's medium. And I'm going to take, and I'm going to take the back of that cylinder and coat that. And then I'm going to take hook shank and coat the hook shank with Zap-A-Gap. Always close your bottle. I've got too many spills on my wife's tables. And we're going to remove the hook, the thread, and take the head and push it on into where you have enough room for the eye. Okay, this next part is a trimming part. This part takes the most time generally. And I trim this initially with scissors, and then I come back with a double-edged razor blade and finish it up. So I'm going to use as a guide this foam cylinder, and I'm going to cut around it, and I'm going to cut little bites out of it. When you get towards the back, you got to make sure you don't cut the tail off.
No.
I'm using scissors just to do rough cut trim. And I'm going to take a double-edged razor blade, and I'm going to bend it. And I'm going to slowly but surely push it back. Almost got it. You can spend all night trimming this thing, but I'm not. Okay, that'll do it. The last thing is to put on the eyes. And we're going to be putting on, you remember, here's the pattern, these little googly eyes, okay? And the way that I do that is I set my fly sideways in the vise, and I take my Zap-A-Gap, put a little dab, doesn't take much. And then here's a little trick. I don't know if you've ever done this, Al. You take your wax and you take your half-inch tool, touch it with the wax, and then you can pick up the eye without getting your fingers all gooky. And again, you just, tap it down, and it takes a while for that to dry. So, and that is the finished lantelope.
A couple of weeks ago, when we did our last Fly Tying Friday, we introduced all of you to a fly called the snafflebit crayfish, probably the best crayfish pattern you can ever fish anywhere. And it's got one problem though, and that's getting the flex clips to tie the flexible part of the fly is a challenge. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But one of the fellows on the call, I can't remember who, you might be on tonight. If you did, if you were, raise your hand or let us know You're the one that made the suggestion that we use the shanks that are used on the game changer fly. Well, I did some investigation on that, and we're going to be doing some of that tonight. But first, we're going to show you where we were last week. And there it is. So you should recognize it. There's one problem with this. It's really okay if you're tying crayfish, but I don't know about you, but if I find something large that works really good as a flex fly, why wouldn't something small? One little problem. The wire on this is so darn thick that on a size 10, you can get it in there, but boy, it doesn't flex so good. It hangs up more than it does anything. But what we're going to share with you tonight are clips that are made out of a lighter weight wire, and they're called game changer clips. Notice that we have a loop back that goes in one direction and another one in a 90-degree angle. And those were just a straight piece of wire a couple of minutes before the program tonight. So I'm going to start out by first talking to all of you about materials and equipment that you'll need. This is the tool that you need. It's in the center there. It's called a bead smith one-step looper tool, and it's used for the craft people that do beads and all that type of stuff. I'll show you one of the things that you can do with it here in just a moment. But anybody that wants to grab their cell phone and take a picture of the screen, that's a bead smith one-step looper tool. That's the tool that we use for forming the clip. And the other thing that we'll need is the wire. And in fiddling around with everything, notice that I talked about the gauge of the wire being a little too thick on those clips that we used a couple of weeks ago, and they wouldn't work well on smaller hooks. Well, this is a gauge of wire that's strong enough, does a good job on big and small. It'll fit into a hook eye down to a 16, and I don't see any reason to tie a flex fly any smaller than a 16, quite frankly. Anyway, this is Malin wire. Number 7 is the size, 80-pound test, and it's 18 thousandths. Now we'll be taking a look at that right now. Let's go over to the fly tying area, and here is the stuff that I'll be using tonight for our demonstration. And of course, that's the looper tool right there. What this thing was really designed for and how we're going to misuse it, if you will. Notice that it's just a loop on one end. It's made just to make a loop like that. And of course, there's a bead. I just stuck a bead on one of Gretchen's sewing pins, and that's what I used to make that loop back right there. Zoom in a little bit.
I'm going to take the animals upstairs.
Sure. Yeah, I think you can probably see that better now. I'm going to start out by just putting a section of this wire that I cut, and they're about 3 inches long, and that's for demonstration purposes. You make these clips as long as you want them. I want you to notice though that I made the clip here. I'll pull one of the clips up. So the fold over would cross over each other. I think you can see that they're slightly long enough so that when you work with them, they'll fold over each other. Now here's the way you use the tool. A little bit different than what it was designed for. Remember, it was designed to make the loop, which means it folds the wire back and cuts it as well. And that's what this part right here is that as it closes, see how that comes up there? And it gets to that point, it folds it around and it's cut the end off. And you actually slide the wire all the way through. And then as you come up, it'll cut that and then fold the loop. Well, I don't want that to happen because I'm not making a loop for beads. I'm making a game changer shank is what it's called. So I want you to notice that I just pliers and I bent that at an angle, a 90-degree angle. In fact, that's just not quite a 90-degree. Let me give it a little bit more of a bend. That's a little bit more than 90, but that's okay. That's what we want. Now, what I'm going to do is flip this over. and I'm going to come out here and I'm going to make a bend 90 degrees away from that. Okay. So now we've got 90 degrees there. A little bit more than 90 degrees there, but they're not in line with each other. They're 90 degrees off of each other. You want to have the straight end sticking up. Okay, good. I wanted you to see what we have to do here. You can see that what we're doing is bypassing the cutting part. So we have to actually slip that in there. And as we push that around, notice that it crosses over. That's okay. Push it back, twist this way, twist that way, let it open. Now what that does is leave it open for you, and that's what you want, because then you're going to close it with thread later, and that will also form an easy way of getting it on your hook. So it'll just slip in and then you'll close that. And we'll do this again. Whoop, sorry for bumping the camera, guys. Just slip that in there. And we just start. And now you've got it, it'll pinch down either way. And you've got the clip that you need for making the snaffleback crayfish or whatever flexible pattern that you want. Now, do we have any questions on that? Because I know that that's a pretty short little demonstration, but the truth of the matter is there isn't too much to it. It's just a matter of if you can put the wire in the pliers and close them, you're done.